Sensational news. Ukrainian drones are destroying Russia's rear positions. These are powerful strikes by the Ukrainian armed forces at a distance of 2,000 kilometers. UAVs are smashing military targets in Komi and Kazan. The command post of the Russian Federation in the Kherson region has been obliterated. The Kremlin is in a panic. Russia is responding with a new cruise missile. But Azerbaijan is changing the rules of the game and may supply weapons to Ukraine. Watch the explosive details in the following report.
Is the United States' financial funding for Ukraine truly and completely over now? J.D. Vance stated that his country will no longer allocate funds for military aid, as this is now more the responsibility of Europeans.
I think the president believes, and of course I do as well, that we will no longer finance the military business in Ukraine. We want to achieve a peaceful resolution to this issue. If the Europeans want to take the initiative and buy weapons from American manufacturers, we don't mind, but we ourselves will no longer finance it.
But just exactly how truly painful could such significant changes potentially be for Ukraine? That's the main question.
Basically nothing new. We understood that we would have to buy aid and that we would no longer receive anything from the US. To put it simply, we got scammed. Ukraine was left hanging at this point. In other words, we were counting on aid that had already been funded, weapons that had already been produced or were being produced, but we won't get them. If we want to receive them, we have to buy them. Nothing will be free anymore.
Help came from where it was least expected. Azerbaijan may consider lifting the embargo on supplying weapons to Ukraine. And all this happened as a result of Russian strikes on the oil depot of an Azerbaijani company in Odessa.
They deliberately attacked it. At least 5 drones hit the site. So, it was intentional. Can we say it happened by accident? No, it was a deliberate attack. Now, Mr. Aliyev has stated that if the Russian Federation does not calm down, they will lift the embargo specifically on military aid supplies to Ukraine. What does this mean? Most likely, it refers to Soviet-style ammunition that can be produced at Azerbaijani enterprises. Perhaps there are some large stockpiles, but in any case, this would be a significant help for Ukraine.
It seems that Russia has developed a new cruise missile. It was detected during the shelling of Mykolaiv. In terms of appearance, it is compared to the British-French Storm Shadow and conceptually to the Ukrainian Peklo. But the Russians are not only striking Ukraine with missiles, they are also increasingly using drones. Now they have established their first UAV control center in Kamchatka.
In my opinion, this is more of a preparatory step. Another question is, why so far away? Well, maybe they're training some of their, just once again, maybe it's to keep it away from any prying eyes from outsiders. Why Kamchatka specifically? It's hard to say. Well, maybe it's the hills, maybe they're trying to simulate the Donbas region.
And what would Russia be without some bavovna? Ukrainian Shaheds hit the assembly points of Russian Shaheds in Kazan, which by the way is more than 1,000 kilometers from the state border. But that's not all the surprises. An oil refinery in the Russian Republic of Komi, which supplied fuel to the Russian army, was also hit. And the distance to it from the Ukrainian border is about 2,000 kilometers.
Well, it's quite possible that this was, for example, a test flight to figure out what is needed. Like how much fuel to calculate, how much explosives. Well, most likely over time we'll see even longer range strikes. But we have to understand that such strikes will most likely only be carried out against highly explosive targets. For example, there's no point in sending a drone to some factory 2,000 kilometers away because it can't really do anything there. But to blow up something that's highly energy intensive, that's another matter.
It is also known that the Ukrainian armed forces carried out a bombing strike on the command post of Russian troops near Oleshki in the Kherson region and destroyed it.
According to preliminary information, about 25 occupiers were killed and at least 11 were wounded. According to intelligence reports, among those eliminated were the commander, the chief of staff, the head of the engineering service, and the commander of one of the battalion's platoons.
In Zaporizhzhia, on the morning of August 10th, Russian forces struck the bus station, where people were injured. According to the latest information, 20 people sustained injuries of varying severity. The strikes also hit the clinic of the Zaporizhzhia Medical University and residential building.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Tensions are rising. Trump is kicking Russia out of the Caucasus. Azerbaijan and Armenia have turned their backs on Russia. The Kremlin is furious. Trump and Putin face to face. What will really be decided in Alaska? Is Zelensky in the game? A geopolitical blow is near. Shock. The US is winding down aid to Ukraine. NATO responds harshly. Rutte has challenged the Kremlin. Fiery details. Watch right now.
This Friday, Putin and Trump will meet in Alaska. There are many rumors surrounding the upcoming meeting. For example, some say it would be better if Putin met with Zelensky before meeting with Trump, or that all three should meet together at once.
I don't think it would be all that productive. I believe in principle that the President of the United States should be the one to bring these two together. Vladimir Putin has said that he would never sit down at the negotiating table with Zelensky. Now that needs to change. Right now, we are at a point where we are trying to figure out, frankly, the situation and similar things, such as when these three leaders could sit down at the negotiating table and discuss ending this conflict.
There is a lot of talk about the upcoming meeting. European leaders are fully on Ukraine's side. But still, NATO Secretary General Rutte has allowed for the possibility of de facto recognition of Russia's control over parts of Ukraine in a future deal.
Russia controls part of Ukrainian territory. The crucial question will be precisely how to effectively move forward after a potential ceasefire, including what this fundamentally means in terms of comprehensive security guarantees for Ukraine, especially when it comes to the complex issue of disputed territory, and also when it comes to the possible formal recognition in a future binding agreement that the Russian Federation de facto controls a significant part of Ukraine's sovereign territory. This should be exclusively de facto recognition, not political recognition.
Trump's special envoy Witkoff may have misunderstood Putin. Reports that the Russian dictator is ready to give up claims to the territory of Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions in exchange for the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from Donbass are false.
Previously, there was a situation with Witkoff where the Russian Federation provided him with a translator.
And everyone had already noticed this and told Witkoff that he shouldn't do that. And as for who Witkoff's interpreter was this time, whether he was again provided by the Russian side or not, remains unknown. I wouldn't be surprised if Witkoff was indeed mistranslated. Once again, this is an orchestrated provocation by the Russian Federation.
US Vice President Vance believes that neither Ukrainians nor Russians will be satisfied with the deal to end the war.
If you take the current line of contact between Russia and Ukraine and try to find some negotiated settlement that would satisfy both Ukrainians and Russians, where they could live in relative peace and the killing would stop, it still wouldn't make anyone particularly happy. Both Russians and Ukrainians will probably, in the end, be dissatisfied with it. But I don't think you can sit down and hold these negotiations without the leadership of Donald Trump.
A diplomatic solution has to be a genuine compromise, and everyone involved certainly understands that. But a compromise is not the same as an absolute ultimatum, a Russian ultimatum. So, when Ukraine is told, you must agree to withdraw, say, from the entire territory of the Donetsk region, and then we will see what happens, that is absolutely not a compromise at all.
There are also serious disagreements within the Russian leadership. Kozak, the deputy head of Putin's administration and his close associate, proposed to stop the war and start peace negotiations since the invasion of Ukraine was a mistake. It was precisely for this that Putin stripped him of some of his powers.
But it's clear that the Russian economy is losing ground more quickly. We are already seeing forecasts of zero growth until the end of the year. And it's obvious that right now the position of the side that is eager for quick negotiations and an end to the war is strengthening. But that doesn't mean Putin is listening to that side. Nevertheless, this shows the different viewpoints in the Kremlin.
In addition, Trump himself landed a low blow on Putin ahead of the upcoming meeting. Azerbaijan and Armenia made peace in the US, completely ignoring Russia as a permanent partner and mediator. Russia's influence in the Caucasus is fading away.
Armenia and Azerbaijan pledged to permanently cease hostilities, open up trade, establish transport links and diplomatic relations, and respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
This is yet another significant and profound geopolitical failure for the Kremlin, which will undoubtedly have extensive and far-reaching consequences for Moscow's overall position and influence in the strategically important South Caucasus region, and in general, for its crucial role as a key party demonstrably capable of effectively acting as a mediator to achieve tangible and lasting results.
Azerbaijan, by the way, will allocate $2 million for the restoration of bombed infrastructure in Ukraine. Also, Baku is ready to lift the ban on arms supplies if Russia continues to strike facilities belonging to Azerbaijani companies on Ukrainian territory.